Hello and welcome to the Wolves Report. I'm Ryan Lester and thank you for joining us for episode 86. Tonight we're going to talk about the Brentford game. We're going to look back at last night's draw. I'm currently waiting for Chris. I'm a bit anxious. I don't know where he's gone. I'm going to give you the Brighton match analysis, the latest in the transfer window, take your questions and look ahead to that game on late on Sunday morning. From technical difficulties, I don't know where Chris is. I don't know what he's doing. Has he had an extra course, an extra pudding, Nocky? I do not know. But Nocky, let's get straight into the show. Plenty to talk about. Nocky, our resident club captain, we're waiting on our director of football. Nocky, take us back to last Tuesday evening in the FA Cup third round replay, where it finished Wolverhampton Wanderers 3, Brentford 2 after extra time.
Yeah, I think from a neutral point of view, it was a pretty good game. I think we made it a lot more difficult than we needed to. It was one of those where you felt that if we scored first, we'd probably take the game away from them. And they were sitting very deep. They didn't have too much in the way of ambition. They didn't really want to attack us. But when you're playing against a team like that, the last thing you want to do is give them a head start. And we did that. It was a really poor goal, I felt. But, you know, we worked really hard. We were relatively organised. I don't think we gave them a great deal, but we gave away a sloppy goal, got ourselves back into it, give away another sloppy goal. And I felt the defensive line just wasn't quite right. And then, you know, Nathan Fraser comes on, scores a fantastic equaliser. And from there, I felt we had a little bit more control in the game. Then we seemed to settle down a little bit, take a grip of it. Couldn't do the job in normal time. But then in extra time, we won a penalty, which was, oh, here he is. He's normally on at 1 minute too, so 1 minute past it, bad.
Well, it's a technical issue, it's all right.
And I thought in extra time, we controlled it relatively well. They still posed a little bit of a threat on the break, but we were the better team. And the penalty, I mean, I've not really seen a replay of it in all honesty, but at the time I was sat with Chris and we both thought it looked incredibly soft, but plenty of them have been given against us this season and Cunha's took it away really well. So it was kind of what I was expecting. I thought it would be tight. I know a lot of people kind of thought we'd blow them off the park, but I think when you're playing a team who sit so deep and don't really want to attack you, it's always going to be a challenge to break them down, especially the way we play, because we like to get in behind, we like to work the channels and find that little bit of space. They've done the homework on us, probably because they've played us so often in the last few weeks and they kind of starved us of space and we just couldn't kind of work our way into the game. The midfield wasn't as snappy as you'd like, but you know, we found a way to win it, and I think that's a mark of a good side if you're not playing particularly well, but you find a way to win the game.
Good evening, Mr. Tyler. Thank you for joining us. Taking your memory back to last Tuesday, where Wolves won 3-2 in the replay. Not going to spend too long on this because I want to talk about last night and preview what's happening the weekend. But obviously, going through was the main thing. But the most encouraging thing for me again was we were losing twice in the game, and yet Wolves have still managed to turn it round.
Yeah, and I'm sure Nocky might have covered it. I think what also was pleasing was we weren't great. We didn't play very well, but we found a way to win. Positive substitutions. You know, Fraser, I mean, he had a 5-10 minute spell where he looked like Haaland reborn, didn't he, Knocker? He was brilliant. He went a bit quiet after that, but I think they just found a way to win, and I think that's what we're starting to see now a little bit, that we questioned at the start, admittedly, didn't we, with Gary and his plan, but there's different ways of playing now, I think, and there's different ways of skinning a cat, isn't there? Last night was a very different performance to the one we saw against Brentford because there were different games and different opposition. And yeah, to answer your question, the fact we came back twice was probably was the most encouraging thing, because we've all been here before and said, if Wolves go 1-0 down, you might as well go home. That's how we were talking, sort of, you know, past seasons. But we said last night, didn't we, Knocker? I know you're going to come on to the game. We've talked about it again. There seems to just be something brewing again. There's something building there. There's an obvious team spirit. There's an obvious togetherness. Players are disappointed now if they're not playing or they're being subbed off. And that's what you want to see, a bit of healthy competition. So just one of those, get through. We just had to get through, didn't we, with what's coming up the weekend. And yeah, they found a way. And I'm pleased for Fraser because he didn't get his chance last night, and I thought he might do, but took his goal really well and was unlucky not to get over. So fair play to him, yeah.
And great link up for the in the build up to the penalty as well. I think it was his trying to sort of feed Neto in, as Neto run it there. Nocky, just finishing off on the Brentford game before we move on to last night. Brentford were winning that tie on 3 separate occasions and still have gone out of the FA Cup. that sounds like what would happen to Wolves in the past. But just finishing off from what Tyler said, the character of this side now, they just keep going. They don't know when they'll be. I was at Brentford with Tyler. You're a goal down, you're a man down, you're thinking the worst. But it seemed to bring out the best in Wolves over the 2 ties, being a goal behind.
Yeah, I mean, we've started the season, we were capitulating, we were falling apart, and we conceded a goal. And he's worked that out of the system. He's put the confidence in. He's made them believe in what they're doing. I think everybody knows their job, and that's the most important thing. Everyone's playing in their comfortable position. They know what they need to do. They know the minimum requirement, and they know what everyone around them's capable of as well, which is, when you're playing regularly, you've got the same sort of players all the time. You just build up an understanding, and there just seems to be a happiness there. They seem happy to be at the club. They seem like they want to be there. They seem like they're enjoying it, and that they want to do well. And it feels like it's kind of linked together a little bit now. We lost it a bit under Bruno Lage. I don't think we ever felt completely linked with him. Lopetegui came in and did a really good job, but it was always bubbling under the surface that potentially we were a stepping stone. He was looking for the next move forward, whereas O'Neill's come in and he's got that team spirit back. You feel like he wants to be here for the long term. He's connected the fans again, and I think it's you can't overestimate exactly what he's done this season, because it's been where we are in the league is pretty remarkable, as we said before, and the way that we're tactically attacking each game now without we can manipulate each environment. We're not looking to play one way, and we did that under Nuno a lot. We played one way because we knew it was effective, whereas O'Neill's kind of looking at each game individually and planning how we can attack it and finding different ways to win football matches and get points. And it's a really interesting way of playing this season. It's so different to what we used to in the past, and it's working for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one final thing for both of you, quick fire question. If Wolves hadn't have gone into extra time on Tuesday night and Pedro Neto got those minutes in his legs, would he have started last night?
I think so, yeah. I think the plan was always for him to start last night.
Yeah, I think he was due a start at some point. You can't keep bringing him on for 20 minutes, half an hour. At some point, he's got to get those minutes in his legs. And did he play nearly 90 last night? And that's a massive, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that extra 30 minutes probably did us a favour, because obviously it's keeping. I know it's a long time in football, and you don't want any players getting injured. But I think that extra fitness, and particularly with having a little gap between games, Wolves haven't really had a bigger gap as other teams. So to get those minutes into players' legs, particularly more minutes for Neto and anyone else on the periphery of the team, I think is a really good thing. Tyler, moving on to last night, your take on Brighton Hove Albion 0, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0.
50% delighted and 50% a little bit frustrated that we haven't nicked it, to be honest. And I didn't think I'd be sat here saying that. The record against them, as everyone knows, is horrendous. We were scratching our head, weren't we, Locker, before the game, trying to think about when we had positive results against them. And I think we all had a bit of a sneaker there, didn't we? We spoke all before the game, and I think we all felt like we've said, this is a different Wolves now, I think. And Gary got it. I mean, we've all criticised him, Locker, as much as anyone, but last night he got it absolutely spot on, I thought. And I was just really encouraged by how we approached the game. I was encouraged by how we managed the game in play. I was encouraged by the substitutions because they were like for like, they were positive. And yeah, like I said, just a little bit disappointed to not win it, because Brighton had all the ball, especially first half. I think they had over 70% possession, didn't they? But the chances fell to Wolves. The clear-cut chances were ours, and it's disappointing. And on another day, Neto scores at the near post, Kuna gambles and has a tap in. Kuna at the start of the second half, they're good chances. They're really good chances. And I'm not going to be negative at all, because I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought we were excellent. And like I said, a bit disappointed to not win it, really.
You're watching and listening episode 86 of the Wolves Report with Mark Knott, Chris Tyler and myself, Ryan Lester, currently discussing Wolves' draw, 0-0 draw with Brighton and Hove Albion. Nocky, it says how far Wolves have progressed recently when Tyler, and I'm completely agreeing with what he says, that we're talking about the fact that we're frustrated that we didn't pinch it at the end because Wolves are the better team. What does that say for the progress under Gary O'Neill?
I think it shows that his attention to detail is really impressive, because we played him earlier on in the season, and I don't think they were much better than us earlier on in the season, but they were absolutely ruthless. Yeah, and we left space in behind us. We let them play, and we let them attack us from the wide positions, and we went there last season. We got done 6-0, and really open, really poor. He really, you could tell he studied that first game at Molineux, because everything they were really good at, we shut them down. We didn't let them get us in the wide position. We got back into our shape as soon as we turned over possession. It was a solid, rigid back line that, held firm, and Doherty I think he was quite important in the game because he held his line well, and he just gave us a little bit of extra stability. It was just it was a really organised, and I said after the game, it was a workmanlike display. And by that, I mean, everyone knew exactly what they had to do, and it was executed perfectly on the pitch. No one tried anything they shouldn't have done. You could see, even from the attacking point of view, as soon as we lost that ball or the possession was turned over, bang, they all dropped back 10 yards and supported the midfield into attack. It was just a really intelligent, thought out delivery of a performance. And as Chris says, Neto gets down to the byline, fizzes one across the face of goal. Cunha, he's probably done the right thing, trying to hold on the space on the edge of the 6-yard box. Neto's probably done the right thing, fizzing it across the face of goal. It's just unfortunate they both did the right thing, but at the wrong time. Any other day he carries on his run, he taps it in, and Lamina's had an effort. We've had, I'd say they've had most of the ball, they've had most of the play, but in terms of actual chances, there's a big argument Wolves should have pinched that game last night and had 3 points out of it. But it's a mark of how far we've come. I mean, they're a really good side. Every version of them you play, they hold the ball really well. They pass with intent. They're always looking to break your lines. They're always looking to bring you out of position and attack you. And they're such a good, fast-flowing team. But I don't think we gave them anything. I mean, Sarr's probably had he's had the one that we cleared off the line, and then we've had Kilman hit the post himself, and it was the lad was offside anyway. And it was, I don't think we left them anything. And normally when we're playing against them, you've got Gross is ripping us to pieces.
You're getting peppered usually. Yeah.
You're normally getting peppered, but we were just solid in our shape. And as we said, we could well have pinched that game. I don't think there would have been much of an argument if we had.
What was really interesting to me was, because every game under Gary, he approaches every game slightly different with the tweaks. But what was really interesting to me, Tyler, was there was a slight tweak, and I'm not just saying it's because it's you, but quite often in the game, I saw Toti Gomez pressing his man and squeezing him, and he was almost in midfield at times. So I'm just highlighting him as one, but it was such a rigid defensive performance when no player was allowed to turn. I know Kilman got caught out once when he got booked. I think that was in the second half when he was playing against João Pedro. But other than that, Wolves didn't get caught. They were aggressive. They were sleepy. Just frustrated Brighton, and they looked like a lot of ideas at the end. Yeah,
I think Brighton had a bit too much of the ball in the first half than I think he would have liked. But look how it changed second half. Second half totally nullified them. You were right, they ran out of ideas, Brighton did. It got into stoppage time and they were passing it about, but they were clueless basically, weren't they? They didn't have a way of getting through us. And what was great was we weren't open first half, that's not fair, but there were gaps between the lines, weren't there, a little bit? But second half, that totally got nullified and we were excellent. And yeah, you're right, Toti in that role, it works for him. And I'm not his biggest fan, but in a way, when the game's a bit simpler for him, he's a better player. He knows what his role is there. If someone goes, I'll follow them and I'll try and win the ball off them. And that's fine. He's good at that. I thought the back three were very good. They were a bit more streetwise. They were a bit naughty when they had to be. Like I said, the only critic I would have, and I don't want to have a negative, was Sarr's distribution again. I think apart from
that was going to be my next question.
I'm always going to bring something up, but apart from that, you cannot fault anyone. And what I liked about it, there were good performances, but no one was really outstanding, but no one was not at it either. It was a real good, like Nocky said, a real good solid.
I would say Sarabia was the only player that was off it.
He was off it, but I like the fact his head didn't drop. He
kept going.
He added value to that team. I think before he's been a bit sulky or he'd have totally disappeared from the game, but he kept showing for it. He did his defensive duties. You're dead right. His distribution was shocking and his touch was as well, but he didn't stop at the same time. So that's the minimum you'd ask, but they're all doing it now. Like Nocky said, they're all playing for each other.
Just on the subject of the goalkeeper, and I know we'll do performances after this, Nocky, but the one big difference I noticed between the teams was how good the Brighton keeper was with his distribution. It was like having a comfortable centre midfielder playing at the back. I know he took risks. I think it was a bit close sometimes, but that's their philosophy and that's what they do. How much would Wolves benefit of a footballing keeper like that? Would that suit us now, or is that not really that important?
I think it would suit us, but Sarr's got some qualities of his own, hasn't he? I mean, there's not many better shot stoppers in the league than Jose Sarr at the minute, and I think I think keepers should be better with their feet. I think that's, the game's changed now. I don't think there's any excuse for some of the distribution that we've seen when the ball's getting thumped out of play, and he's not great in that area. It's something that definitely needs to be worked on. But at his age, you're really going to change that. So maybe there's a decision to make down the line, but I wouldn't swap their keeper for ours. Is probably what I'm getting at. I'm quite comfortable that Sarr was all round a better goalkeeper, but the distribution piece is a bit of a concern.
Yeah, it is a concern. Overall, though, Tyler, it's another massive step forward. I mean, I tweeted about our conversation that we had pre-game that I wasn't resigned to it because Wolves have always got a chance and you always back your team. But this is a point that we'd have all taken way before the game. I don't think anyone would have said, if you're offering you 0-0 at Brighton, would have all taken it. Brighton scored every home game. I think the last time they didn't score at the Amex was in March. And yes, they've got players out, but Wolves have got players out. What a credit to this side for stopping one of the most frequent home scorers.
Yeah, I think it's easy to forget that the players out probably walk into our first 11, don't they? I think there's going to be a big decision around Gomez and Doyle coming up for O'Neill.
But the other two definitely getting.
Aït-Nouri and Hwang are in your team every single day of the week. So we're missing players, but they're key players. I think Aït-Nouri is borderline irreplaceable. I don't think you can. And, I mean, Hwang's gone full circle, hasn't he? He was probably the one player last night that probably would have got on the end of that cross or would have got the finish that we were looking for, and who'd have thought would have been saying that at the start of the season. So they're big misses, but Brighton had big misses as well. Their best player wasn't there, and you can only play and beat what's in front of you. And
as we said, we've saying all season in the podcast, though, it's not you don't have 11 good players and a couple of names. It's a squad. It's a squad game now, and it's very rare the same team plays every week.
Especially now with the 16, you can use 5 subs. It's not 11 players anymore, and it just, like I said, yeah, Doherty. I mean, Doherty's had stick, hasn't he? I think from a certain member of this podcast, but
right,
both of you really. And let's be honest, as a seasoned Premier League backup fullback, you're not going to get many.
He did very well. He did very, very well last night.
He's not expecting to start games, I don't think. But when he comes in, I don't think he's let us down.
No, he's done okay. I say, and I know we talk about it on the group chat and we have a debate about it. I prefer the balance. I think your most natural wide players that offer that need to be on their natural foot. And I think the rest of his game was really good, but because he's not left-footed, he quite often has to cut back and start again. And that's not his fault. I get that. Defensively, and particularly in the air, he has been very, very good. I just think we lose that flow that Aït-Nouri or an old Bueno, when he was on form, would give us that natural left-footer that would have that ball down the line. We've kind of lost that, but that's not Doherty's fault.
And that's why I think Aït-Nouri is the hardest one to replace. And it's just a shame that Bueno, for whatever reason, just form or injury or confidence, something's gone, hasn't it? So, but fair play, like you said, there's people missing, but everyone has come in and stepped up, and that's all you can ask for.
Absolutely, there's a real squad feel at the moment. Yeah, Nocky.
I think I was just going to jump on that. I think that the Doherty piece is another nod to O'Neill as well, because I've been picking up some interviews today from what Gary O'Neill was saying. There was a really interesting piece before the game, and he was talking about how Brighton would leave us one-on-one in defensive areas a lot, and that happened 3 or 4 times. He's done his homework, and I think he identified that Doherty on that side would give us a little bit more stability. Because in my head, I kind of had a suspicion Totti might drop wide, and then we keep Santiago Bueno in, and we play Totti as almost a wing back. That was kind of where I thought he might go, and I think that would have been a viable option. But he's obviously identified, and he does this because he looks at the players that are going to be against you, that Doherty's the right man to be in that position because of what he brings in. So it may be completely different in the next game. You might think that Hugo Bueno, there's an opportunity that Aït-Nouri could potentially be back against Man United, but he'll look at it and he'll identify who's the best player for that role. And I think that's a really important point, that he's doing his homework on teams, and it was effective last night because, as we've said, I think Chris said it was March since they've had a goalless they haven't scored at home for Brighton, and we've managed to do that. With Doherty playing in the back line, so every decision he made, every single decision, whether it was substitutions or the starting 11 or the tactically, were right last night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's really interesting before we go into going through the team review, what's really interesting for me is we were worried about Mario Lemina. Tommy Doyle stepped up. Wolves are winning games. Worried about Ait Nouri. Matt Doherty stepped up. Huang's been away. We thought we were going to miss his goals. I mean, I'm not saying anyone's particularly stepped up in there, but we've not missed those players as much. I wouldn't say we've missed them. We wouldn't be better without them, but Wolves haven't lost a game. So that's credit to the squad and the belief and everyone taking their opportunity when they're given it. So, Chris, I think this is an easy one for you. Just starting off with Jose Sarr. I think we covered a bit of it really, but just your quick take on Jose Sarr's performance.
I just want to know where the Nocky from last Tuesday night's gone when he was talking about Jose Sarr's distribution then, because there were a few foul-mouthed rants last Tuesday from you, Nocky, when Sarr kept kicking it out of play.
I said his distribution's poor, but I think his shot stopping's up there with anyone
else. Was it word for word that, Tyler?
I can't say it even after 9 o'clock. Some of the stuff he was coming out with.
Honestly, he rocks up late. He throws his stick around.
We're nitpicking, but
that's what we're here to do.
It's not happening every now and again, is it? It's basically every time he has the ball now. I mean, the one where he tried to feign the striker. I saw that coming last week. I mean, it was so obvious he was going to do it. He had it in his arms and he threw it to Neto when Neto's got two men tight to him and we give possession away. Something's got to change because his distribution is getting worse.
Because he looks to me, Tyler, though, like he can kick a good ball. I just think it's his decision making that's worse than his kicking.
But there's a couple second half where they're just going out of play. They're nowhere near anybody. And I know, like I said, I don't want to be critical, and I don't want to be at all. But Knocker's right. As goalkeepers go, he's very solid. His shot stopping's great. He's just got to work on it. He's got to get it better, hasn't he? You know, we had Matt Murray, didn't we? And he couldn't kick for toffee. And Sarr's almost getting to that point now. And I'm not saying we need to play tiki-taka and play from the back, but just try and find Doherty or try and find Kuna. Do you know what I mean? Just try and find them. But
that we talked about this, that out ball for Doherty, when he's playing left wing back or right wing back, there isn't many 6-foot fullbacks that head the ball as good as he does. He does not lose. He's 9 out of 10 with his headers. Surely that's your outfield. If you can't pass, if you're being squeezed high, that's your ball. Him and Dendoncker used to rotate that and used to do it every week.
Yeah, and Brentford away was a clear tactic where they did that and
did really well.
So I don't know, but I mean, one of us three could have probably played in goal last night, really, couldn't we? He had very little to do, and that, you know, that's more of a compliment to the three in front of him, isn't it, really? I thought he was protected very well last night.
Yeah, those in front of him did very, very well. While we're on the subject of the front three, Nocky, talk me through one by one the back three: Max Kilman, Toti Gomez, and the king of West Bromwich, Craig Dawson.
Again, they were very solid. They screened the goalkeeper well. I thought they had a lot of protection in front of them. Lemina, for me, sat very comfortably in front of that back line and protected it well. I was a little bit in the mindset that Bueno would be very unlucky to be dropped. So my head said I thought if anyone was going to come out of that team, it would potentially be Toti out of that back line because I just felt Bueno would earn his spot. But Toti had a fantastic game.
What would you have done then? Would you have kept Max? Because he seems to like Max on that side.
I would have put Max over on the left and I'd have stuck Dawson in the middle and Bueno on the right. That's what I would have done, but I probably would have been wrong because I wouldn't get to clean sheet. And that's not saying that I want Toti dropped. I just felt that out of the three that were there, if you're going to bring Dawson back in, which you're going to, I felt Toti was maybe the one who wasn't quite at it the last few games. He was the one who was probably vulnerable, but he had an outstanding game. He didn't. I think it's a sort of game for him because he didn't have to do a lot of thinking. Everything was very reaction, very instant. Win the ball, give it away, just get the tackle, give the ball upfield. You know, it was just there wasn't any long thought processes, which are where I think he kind of struggles a little bit when he's got a little bit of time on the ball. He was just very, very efficient. He shut the space down well. Positional sense, I thought, was excellent. So he had a top performance. He was probably the best of the three for me. Dawson just slid back in, didn't he? Pretty imperious. And Max Kilman, I thought, other than the booking, which was pretty rash to be fair, but other than that, I thought he was very, very solid. But I don't think they had a great deal to do. I think because of the system we were playing, the positional sense of everybody, especially having Lemina back, I think Lamina, when he screens in games like that and he sits in front of the back line, he offers so much protection, and that was real. That was a real asset for me in that game. But I thought that they all played well without having to do a great deal.
Yeah, there was a few comments. I mean, I did my team prediction and I flew to getting 11 out of 11. A lot of people saying, "Oh, you can't drop Santi," and to agree, it's hard to drop someone that's playing well. But Craig Dawson showed that if he's fit, he has to play. He's Wolves' most consistent defender. In the middle of those two, in the middle of Totti and Max Kilman, it's very rare that Dawson hardly makes a mistake. Never mind has a bad game. So I thought it was great again. I mean, they're very dangerous from corners. There's some big punters at the back from them. He dealt with that. I think they've dealt with all the free kicks really well. I think there was one when Jose Sarr sort of flipped it over the bar. I'm not really sure what he was trying to do, but we got away with it. But otherwise, I thought the centre-backs were, for using one of Tyler's better words, imperious. The heading and the clearances were absolutely fantastic. Tyler, moving on to the wing-backs, Nelson Semedo, who I thought was magnificent, and Matt Doherty.
I thought Semedo was good. Yeah, I wouldn't overdo it. I think the block second half was outstanding. That was an outstanding piece of defending.
Getting your leg round there.
Yeah, just because he was the wrong side and to get the blocking, it's as good as a goal, that is, because that's in, isn't it? And you are 1-0 down there, and that was brilliant. He is starting to be a bit more consistent now, isn't he? That's what I'm liking from Semedo. I think before we've always said he's got that ability, but he's a bit inconsistent. His defending now it's up there, isn't it? It really is from right backs. He's always going to have the question mark. I mean, he scored obviously in the week against Brentford. He's always going to have the question mark going the other way until his stats potentially improve. But he's all day our right back, isn't he? By far the best right back at the club and really kicking on defensively. And Doherty, I liked it. I thought he really did a really good job. I liked the little clip balls he was playing into the channels. I thought he didn't shy away from anything. I mean, did they get down that side? I can't recall. I can't. Yeah. So Knocker's right about Totti and Doherty. I mean, you're sort of on paper thinking, "Oh, crikey," against Brighton, but they were both to-a-man excellent. So you can't fault the full-backs at all. I thought they were brilliant. And I liked how Doherty just made us solid on that side, like Knocker said, and it enabled, whether it was Neto or Sarabia on that side, to not worry so much about coming back the other way and being there for the counter-attack.
I think it suited Doherty as well because they didn't play with a lot of width. So a lot of their players are forced to cut inside, and then you're forcing Doherty onto his stronger foot, which probably actually played to our favour, because the one thing I wouldn't want with Doherty there is someone pushing it on the outside of him and going down. Yeah. Vulnerable to that. So to have him being forced onto his stronger side, and he didn't look troubled all night. So moving on to the midfield, I'm going to give you one each because I think they both need talking about. Nocky, tell me about Tommy Doyle.
I didn't notice him all that much in the game, but looking back on it now, I've realised he had an absolutely fantastic game. He got one off the line. He just seems to... He has an ounce of calmness about him. He has an ounce of... He always seems to be in space. He can see a pass. He never seems worried. He never seems troubled. He's a very, very composed footballer, and his distribution is excellent. He's always looking forward. He's looking for the pass. He's always looking to get us on the front foot. And
he's a Man City thoroughbred, isn't he, from their youth academy? Well, you can see.
You can tell when those players have come through them kind of academies, can't you? Because he's just a natural footballer. He knows exactly what he wants to do. And for the money we're talking about for signing him, he's the biggest no-brainer in football to get that deal done as soon as we can, because he's such a talented player. And I think the biggest kind of compliment I can pay him is I don't see Gomez getting back into this side at the moment. I think that's Doyle's shirt now, and I think Gomez has got to get it off him.
But no, Nocky, what a fantastic position to be in. We didn't really... We saw Tommy Doyle at Ipswich. It was all right. It wasn't a great performance at Ipswich, but he came on. He had a few cameos. I think he came on the game at Bournemouth. He changed the game. He sort of sped things up. We took advantage of being having a man advantage there. But since he's broke into the team from, obviously, the unfortunate circumstances of Mario Lemina, Tommy Doyle's been one of Wolves' most consistent players, I would argue, over the last few weeks, and he's really stepped up. I mean, Tyler at Brentford, he was holding Wolves together. One man in midfield, be there. Three was absolutely fantastic.
But he's a young lad as well. I mean, it's hard to forget that, he's come from Man City, but he didn't play for them. And, he was at Sheffield United and he played for them. This is his first real assault on the Premier League. And he's a kid learning his trade. And to be at the level he's at now, And he does give you he's not at Moutinho's level at the moment, but he gives you that kind of feeling, that air of calmness, that someone who can just put the foot on the ball.
Neat and tidy, yeah.
Yeah, he
Well,
can
I
look
think
up.
that
He's in space.
One of my favourite things about Moutinho that I described him, I think he was a relentlessly good decision maker. You didn't see Moutinho make rash passes. If the crossfield pass was on or the through ball was on, he would do it. But otherwise, 95% of the time, it was pass, and it was a good decision maker. So yeah, I can see what you're saying there. You can see the obvious pass, and he always seems to play it and find it quickly. What I would say though, to give some balance, I thought Doyle started the game a little bit slowly. In fact, I thought quite a few of the midfielders were a little bit loose in possession, probably the first 10 minutes until we got our second breath. But after that, I thought Doyle was fantastic. Tyler, moving on to Mario, who again I thought was a little bit slow starting the game in possession, but again when he got his second wind, he was back to himself.
Yeah, totally agree. I think there's a bit of rust there, isn't there? He's had a good few weeks off, hasn't he? And yeah, he was loose and sloppy with the ball sort of first 20 minutes, half an hour or so. But I thought second half he was outstanding. He was doing that body position where he just nicks the and makes it look
little
so.
spin.
You think, how's he got the ball? And they don't even know how he's nicked the ball off them. And I'm with Knocker. I don't see how you change that too now. I don't see it. I think Doyle has earned his share, and I think it's his to lose now. And Mario's always your pick, isn't he? He's always going to play. And they do seem to complement each other. I think what we talked about earlier in the season, Gomez and Lemina, the one criticism is they can be seen as fairly similar in how they play and how they approach the game. Doyle just gives you that little bit of nous and that bit of creativity that Nocky mentioned. And for me, it's a nice partnership, and I think it's one that I'd like to see for a bit longer, really.
Absolutely. Well, it's a great problem to have. When we're talking about Joe Gomez earlier on, was probably one of Wolves' best players at the start of the season. He was starting to show his range of passing a bit more. We all know he's about his tenacity, celebrating tackles, blocks. Very, very good footballer. A little bit of a silly challenge, but a little bit unfortunate at Brentford. But it's offered an opportunity to Tommy Doyle, who's taking it. But if you've got someone like that coming back in, it's going to keep Mario and Tommy both on there. And I've got to be honest, from what I've seen from all three, I'm comfortable with the pairing of any of them because we've seen, I think, all of them paired at some stage, and it's been good results. I think Mario's the main man, and it's one of the others. But for now, I would agree that I think it's Tommy's shirt. But just one thing about
you make a good point about when we've seen it before. When a position becomes available, we haven't seen people really own it, and I think Santi Bueno's done it. I think he's been excellent when he's come in, and like Mark said, he was unlucky to be dropped. Doyle's made it his own. Sarabia's come into the team.
I'd argue that Doherty's improving slowly week in, week out.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. That makes you think that something good's happening there because they're coming in and they're having an impact and they're feeling part of it. And I think, J-Lo had his positives. He kept us up, but we seemed to lose a bit of that, didn't we? The players seemed to be a bit low on confidence or they weren't quite sure. But Gary's just made them all want to be in. And I think you make a great point. If someone comes in, it's their shirt to lose then. So fair play to them.
Absolutely. One final thing on Mario before we talk about the forwards. Considering he had a touch of the Spurs about it, you could see he was like, should I make the run? He made the run, and then his first yard of pace, he's pushed it back. Van Beek, is it? He pushed it past him, and he's pinged it at the keeper. But to have that kind of desire and energy, you've had a couple of weeks away, you're not at yourself. I just love Mario Lemina. I mean, me and Nocky, we've been singing him, and I know you love him as well now, Tyler. But that guy in that team, he's improved so much.
But that's almost the point. He wasn't doing that under.
No, you're right. He absolutely wasn't.
And now he's got that free rein where I think, you know what, I can get beyond the striker, and he's added goals this season, and he's arguably player of the season. There's a few to talk about, but he's the one. You are right that has to go with one of the other two, definitely.
Yeah, he's very much missed the Wolves at the moment. Him and Dawson, for me, first names on the team sheet. They've got the fire in the belly. They're good decision makers, and Wolves just look a better side for them both in there. Nocky taking the performance levels down a bit. Tell me about Pablo Sarabia.
He struggled a little bit. I think we've had a conversation about Sarabia that he's a bit of a conundrum because there's certain games that he fits and there's certain games he doesn't. He needs space and he needs time. And he needs Wolves to be in a position where we're were advancing with the ball. I don't think that game was ever really going to suit him yesterday, because when Wolves had the ball and when we were attacking, it was always going to be a break. It was always going to be trying to hit Neto, trying to hit Cunha and break with speed. He's not going to really affect games like that. But I think, as Chris said, he didn't hide, and there was moments where he linked us up really well. So he did his job. He did what he was there to do. You let Cunha, you let Neto attack, and then he sits maybe as a little bit of a backup tucking in behind. You could see him dropping into maybe the number 10 position, letting those two advance, and then he's your extra cover in midfield. So he did the job he was there to do. But I don't think it was a bad performance at all. I just think that when you're playing a West Brom, as we're going to come on to, I know at the end of this, but when you're playing someone like that, where you know you're probably going to have more of the ball and you're probably going to dictate the play a little bit more, that's when you want him, because he's the man who's finding the pockets of space, he's finding the pass, and he's giving you that option, that different kind of dynamic to your team. But when you're in a game like that, where it's all going to be fast-paced, 100 miles an hour break, trying to break their lines and getting behind them, he's just not going to be as effective. But as I say, I don't think it was a bad performance. I just don't think it was ever going to be a game he was going to affect.
No, it didn't suit him. Tyler, tell me about Pedro Neto.
Yeah, I loved it. It was like he'd never been away to a point, wasn't it? And what can you say about him? We sort of said again in the past, haven't we, that, is he going to kick on? Is he going to find the level that his potential's promised? But he certainly has. I mean, they're terrified of him, aren't they? All opponents are terrified of him. Second half, there was a chance it'd have been 1-1 with Dunk, wasn't it? And Dunk just flew in because he was terrified that if he'd nicked it and got in front of him. Could have had a goal, if Steele wasn't a little bit lucky with his dive.
I think Brighton got away with one there, and I don't think Pedro looked up. If Pedro looks up, I think he puts that in the near post. So there's a bit of misfortune from us and a bit of fortune from them. One thing, Tyler, I find interesting, I don't know if you noticed this as well about Neto, I think he really managed his energy levels. He didn't press a lot. When there's an opportunity to stand still for 30 seconds and catch a breath, obviously we're not expecting players to relentlessly press, but you could see he would. Yeah. If there was something that you could chase when you're fully fit, you could see him take 30 seconds to himself. And I thought that was smart, because obviously he's under instruction. Otherwise, he'd have burnt out after an hour. But I thought that was really smart from him and good planning from Wolves as well.
Yeah. I didn't expect him to last as long as he did, to be honest. So that's credit to him, but also credit to what we talked about with O'Neill and the fitness team, how they've managed him back into the team, because it would have been very easy, especially with Juan going, to throw him back in and rush back, but they haven't. And I think you touched upon it earlier, because of the players have stepped up, we haven't necessarily, it sounds stupid, but haven't necessarily missed him from a results viewpoint. But to have him back and firing is just massive, isn't it? He's arguably been one of the form players in the whole league this season.
Absolute handful. If we keep him fit for the rest of the season, then who knows? Last but not least, of the starting players, Nocky, Matheus Cunha, I think he was all right. I think he'll be frustrated that he probably didn't score, but it wasn't a bad performance from him at all.
I thought he played well, and there was a rundown I think it was in the first half, where he broke down the left wing and he just kept going and going. I think the ball bounced off his thigh, he span, he took it away down the touchline.
That was beautiful, yeah.
And the ball across was the right ball, but he just didn't quite get it right in terms of delivery.
I thought Neto should have gone and met that, because Neto looked like he was running away. I thought if he'd have gone to the near post, Neto would have probably had a chance then.
Yeah, maybe so, but I thought in terms of his ball carrying was excellent. He was always an option. He was always looking to get into space and give us a little bit of space, a little bit of movement. I thought he played well against a team that are very good defensively. And look, he's not a game like that. He's not going to get many opportunities. You're probably going to get 2, maybe 3 chances, and maybe 1 clear-cut chance in the game. And it's always going to be a bit of a challenge, because you're going to spend most of it defending. But he was a live wire. He was very active, and I thought he had a good game.
That confirms and ties up the player performances. We're going to just have a quick chat about the transfer window. In the press conference, Tyler, Gary alluded to another forward coming in, and it seemed to me like he felt quite confident. It was almost like, I know what's happening, don't worry about it, it'll be fine. And I think we're all at the stage now, he's not expecting anybody to leave. I think Johnny's going to, without that's confirmed, he's going to get his contract terminated, some kind of agreement there. He'll be gone. Mascara's gone. He's had a good move. but it feels to me like now it'll just be a striker on loan coming in. Having watched Wolves and how they've evolved in the last month or two, is that enough for us?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you have been quite open and said I'm liking what I'm seeing, and I don't really think that needs to change too much. I think everyone's harping on about this number 9, but this number 9 doesn't get in the team. He's going to be starting from the bench, so you're looking for someone who suits that profile. And there's been a lot of talk about Che Adams and Danny Ings, but I might be wrong, but are Southampton going to let him go when his form's picked up and they're flying?
Contract up in June and available for $6 million.
Someone comes up with $6 million, but then is someone going to come up with $6 million when he's free in a few months? I'm not sure on that one. Danny Ings has worked his way back into the West Ham side, started at the weekend. I don't know, is my honest thought. Unless it's someone out of the blue, I'm not sure. I would be happy with either of those two options. But I'm a little bit like, well, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. And there's 5 very good forward options at the club when Bang comes back in. And it's been the best forwards return we've had for as long as I can remember. So,
well, since the Jimenez yesterday, it's by a mile.
If no one comes in, to be honest, I'm quite comfortable with that. And I didn't think I'd be saying that, but I'm fairly comfortable with it.
Nocky, there seems to be quite a hunger for a classic number 9. And let's not forget, Wolves are 3 points off a European place, and they're not really playing with a number 9 all season. Is it particularly that goal scorer to give us an option that we need, or would you be happy with another forward that contributes like the rest?
I think we've got forwards who are very similar. I think, Bellegarde, Neto, Sarabia may be slightly different, Cunha, but they're all pacey. They're all going to look to get in behind. They're all going to look for that run to dart into the box and finish. And I think we lack in maybe a different dynamic at times. It's caught us out at, Sheffield United, where we couldn't really change the game. Fulham, arguably, we could have done with doing something a little bit different. So I feel like it's the right decision to bring in a number 9. With financial fair play, we can't go out and buy one. So you would suggest it's going to be a loan with potentially an obligation or a option to buy at the end of it. I don't think we'd be looking to spend money this point of the season. So I think it would be nice to have something different from the bench. But I've no idea who that player is going to be, because Che Adams would have been your natural choice. But if I'm Southampton now, I'd rather lose him for a free and get
yourself second place in the league.
Because it's theirs to lose now, isn't it? So if you do you take a little bit of cash and risk that? I'm not so sure they will. So I've no idea who that player is going to be. But I just think sometimes you need a little bit of different impact from the bench. You need to be able to change a game. And although we've got very effective strikers, and I'm with Chris, if we don't bring anyone in, I'm not going to complain. But I don't quite think Fraser's ready for that yet. I'd kind of like to see him go out on loan and get some minutes, because I think there is an exceptional footballer there. But he's at that stage of his career where he'll give you 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes of impact. Then you're going to be carrying him in the nicest sense of the word, because he's not developed his game yet to be a constant impact. So I think minutes for him is more important than him staying with us. So I think it's probably the right decision if we do get a number 9 in. If it's a natural number 9, not another player who is going to affect us from wide positions. I'd want a natural number 9, someone just standing in the middle of the goal and put the ball in the net.
If I was a betting man, I would say if Wolves are going to sign anybody on loan, I would say it's most likely to be Danny Ings. I've just got that feel about it. We've been linked with him before. We've been talking to him in the group chat about it, and I'll eat humble pie if he smashes a load of goals in. I would say it was, I could say, only Sheffield, but he was very good against Sheffield. He was probably their best player. I think he got man of the match on Sky or BT where it was on. Wasn't so good on the Tuesday before against Bristol City, but he did play very well the weekend. And he's certainly that sort of fox in the box character. Not that he hasn't scored a goal for 10 months, but you could see he's that player that's getting those opportunities that only probably Hwang does for us now. So let's see. A question popped up on the timeline. I usually pre-plan the questions because I put it on my Twitter, but this one from Matt's an absolute belter, and I really like it. Who are your unsung heroes in this Wolves team so far, guys, in your opinions? It's a great question, Matt. As always, the show is recorded live, and you can put your questions via X/Twitter, YouTube, or Facebook, and we can get them on the show there. I'll start off, guys, if you want to have a think. Considering, I mean, it's not an unsung hero because we're talking about his praises, but a special shout out for Ryan Aït-Nouri that if Lopetegui was here, he'd have probably been sold now. So the influence that Ryan Aït-Nouri has on games and the balance and that constant outball, because that kid will take the ball in possession absolutely anywhere. Somewhere that he has split opinions, but I think he's probably having his best few months at Wolves now, and he looks like he's maturing as a footballer. And he does get praise, so he's probably not an unsung hero, because I think it's probably hard to pick that, because I think everyone's had their praise individually. But for me, the person that considering he was close to being sold and he was being bombed out of the team by Lopetegui, my praise would be for Ryan Aït-Nouri. Nocky.
I don't think there are any unsung heroes, because I think the players who are playing are all getting the recognition. If we're talking the most important player in the team, for me, it's Mario Lemina. I think he's the one who makes such a difference to us. But in terms of unsung heroes, you could argue Santiago Bueno, because he came in and did a good job for us. But I think the players are getting the recognition they deserve because of the performances they're putting in. So I think it's a fantastic question, but I can't think of anyone in that team who's probably not getting the recognition they deserve, in all honesty.
Tyler?
I'm going to answer it the same way Nocky did, because I agree that they are all getting the praise. But I think for me, it'd be Matheus Cunha. I think if he doesn't play, we're a different team. I think arguably the others you can sort of look to replace, but if he's not in the team, he'd be the biggest miss for me. So I think he's currently our most important player, which sort of answers Matt's question, hopefully.
Matt, that's a great question. Thank you for being part of this week's show. We've got a couple of other questions then before we preview Sunday's game. A bit of a tongue-in-cheek question, maybe last. Graham Cope says, has Gary O'Neill made J-Lo look like a PE teacher? Well, let's have a little bit of praise for what Gary O'Neill has done so far. He's over halfway through.
Sorry, because I saw this question earlier. Can I spin it round?
Yeah.
Would Gary O'Neill have kept us up at Boxing Day last season when we had 10 points from however many games?
I'm going to say yes, because he's got that.
I don't think he does. I think J-Lo, for what we wanted at that time, was exactly the right man.
Yeah, maybe. It's a great spin, but you've avoided the question. But anyway.
I think I'll put a spin on that as well. I think I'm not so sure he would have kept us up, but what I do think, though, I think he's made J-Lo look very, very stupid, because he came out and said he can't get any more out of this team unless you're going to throw a load of money at it, basically.
He basically suggested relegation with his set of players, didn't he?
Yeah, and we lost Neves, we lost Moutinho, we lost Raul, we lost Traore.
Some big characters.
Fringe players, a lot of players gone, and Gary O'Neill's come in and he's arguably took us to another level. So I'm not sure J-Lo looks like a PE teacher, but he did a fantastic, he did an absolutely phenomenal job for us, keeping us in the division.
Oh yeah, respect to that for keeping it, no problem.
Yeah, but I think Gary O'Neill's probably pushed us further than J-Lo was willing to do without a budget.
I think J-Lo just didn't want to be here, and that's fair enough. And he's a manager that obviously wants money and cash to spend, and we didn't have that. But you've got to give J-Lo huge credit. You know, you guys have been waxing lyrical about Craig Dawson and Mario Lemina, who brought them to the club. You know, you can criticise the fact he might want to replace Ryan Aït-Nouri, but he's brought in two absolute heroes. So I don't know. I think he gets. It's a great question. It is obviously a bit tongue in cheek, but I wouldn't have wanted Gary O'Neill at the time we brought J-Lo in, but now he's 100% the right man for what we need.
Absolutely. Thanks for being part of the show, Graham. Really, really good question. Moving on to Chris Chisnell. With Doyle playing so well, how does Joe Gomez get back in the side v Man United? Who is the better player, or can we accommodate all three? Great question again. I don't see, unless Doyle played further up, and I don't think he's got the legs for that in our system. I think it's two of the three. But I think we kind of covered this earlier on, guys. It's what a great position to be in. You've got three players, all on form, all playing well. Great problems to have.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of who's the better player, I think that they're different players in what they do. They're very different players. So I don't think it would be fair to say who's the better player. In terms of three, I feel like we would affect ourselves if we did that, because the three attackers we've got give you width and pace, and you're going to probably sacrifice one of them in order to bring three in. So it's got to be two from three, and I think you've got to go by who's in the best form at the moment, and for me, Doyle and Lamine has got to be your two. Although saying that, Gomez is a very, very good player, but he's only going to help because he's only going to spur on the other two to try and keep the shirt, because they know he's going to be waiting for that opportunity to get back in.
And what I would say as well is, because we have got quite a tenacious midfield, I would expect a couple more suspensions. So when you've got that player, no one's going to be frozen out and stay, because João Gomez is going to book, Mario's going to get booked, and Doyle gets stuck in as well. So natural opportunities will occur because of the way we play.
Yeah.
Chris, thank you for being part of the show. Carlos, what was your points target when you were expecting from 21 games? I mean, for me, I was aiming for.
I thought if we get double figures, I'll take that.
I mean, I said at the start of the season, I think I said 12th. You guys were a little bit close to the bottom. But in reality, after 21 games, I'd have been looking at getting 21 points, because I think if you go a point per game, that probably keeps you up. That would have been my target, guys.
Same, yeah. I always say get to 40, which is roughly a point a game. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think that 8 points better off than I thought we'd be, yeah.
Yeah, you want to hit 20 by Christmas. I always think if you can get to 20 by Christmas, you give yourself a chance. I think my target would obviously have been 20 plus. My expectation was a lot lower than that, so it's a reflection of what they've managed this season.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carl, for being part of the show. Interesting one. We have covered this a bit, but it's a question up there from Paul Nichols. Where do you finish with and without a number 9 coming in? This is a tough one, because I mean, I spoke. Excuse me. I spoke to Daz earlier on about this as well. How much of a 9 coming in and having a 9 that's down the middle completely all the time, how much is that going to change our system? Is that going to change how fluid we are now? I mean, Tyler, horses for courses, but is it going to make a lot of difference, or is it nice to have that option for when we need someone, if we're pressing a team and we can't get a goal?
Yeah, I think Nocky covered that in the fact it will give you a different option. To answer Paul's question, I don't know. I still think we're like 10th to 12th. I still see that's where we are. I think the top 5 is done. There's an argument that, beat Man United, you joint level with them. Can you kick on and can you do it? I don't know. I don't think we are probably overachieving, but we probably are. And can you do that over the course of the season? I don't know. It's going to take a hell of a lot to break that top 8 or 7 for me. So, but who knows? Beat United, and you're right in it. You're literally right in it for that 7th spot.
Well, so 4 points from Brighton and Man United would be absolutely enormous. I mean, just to finish off on Paul's question, I would like a 9, because I don't think you can let Sasha go in, who was a different kind of option, and Fabio, who had his chance and it didn't work out. I do think we need to bring in that option, whether it's Danny Ings, Che Adams, whether there's a surprise. And I think
mentioned from he's been linked. I don't know if that's the Chelsea forward, Broha. He's been linked.
Broja, yeah. I mean, I like him, but they're talking about obligations of 35 million. I mean, Chelsea are with all their business anyway, and they can spend it however they want, but they're massively inflating the market anyway, and trying to charge 35 million for a player of that's, I don't know if he's got 1 goal or 2 goals this season. It's just outrageous money, but it's their player and they can charge what they want. But if there is someone come in, though, I do think we need that. Okay.
I think just on Paul's point there, I mean, there's an argument that because of Kalajic, we were 4 points better off, because he came on at Everton and he scored. He came going against Brentford and he scored, against Bournemouth and he scored. So a number 9 does give you a different dynamic when you need it. I'm kind of with Chris. I feel like 10th is probably our ceiling this season. That's what it feels like to me. I feel like we'll probably be around about where we are, be between 11th and probably 13th. That's kind of where I think we'll be this season, and I don't think that's bad at all. I think that gives us a building block for next season. But the teams above us, there's some good teams up there, and it's difficult to think we'll get more points than them between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, tough one, but look at the run of form we're on. Look who we've got. Let's just take one game at a time, and I know next league game is Man United, but we have a massive game to deal with first. Let's just take one more question before we preview that game. Jonah asked, do you think a 5 at the back is the way forward now? A 4 was lost. Wolves a clear identity in the past and made us slow down, allowing pressure. We were all advocates of back 4. I think we're more advocates for as long as Wolves are winning, to be honest. But Wolves have sort of refound an identity, whether they've fallen upon it now, but they do have an identity. We know how we're going to press. We know how we're going to break. So for now, I think with this set of players, I wouldn't be changing it at all. That would be a way to get a striker into the team, to drop a centre back and go with that. Why, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Are you guys of the same kind of feeling as me on that?
Yeah. Certainly for this season. The other interesting thing is it's the flip side is it's the way of getting Doyle, Gomez and Lamina in as well if you went to a 4-3-3. I just think the way we are at the moment and the players we have, we're suited to. I mean, it is a bit of a hybrid sometimes. We do sometimes go into a 4 without, with or without possession. But I think for the players we've got and where we are now, it's a no-brainer. But I don't see any reason why we could never play with a back 4. Do you know what I mean? We should be able to. So.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of tried it at Sheffield United when we moved over Totti to left back, and it just didn't work. And that's not Totti's fault. I don't think he's a left back. I think for me, he's a left-sided centre back of a 3. And your fullbacks now, modern fullbacks, I think have to be of a certain level of technical ability, and I don't think that suits Totti. No fault of his own. But for now, I'm sticking with the wing backs. It's 3-4-3. It's defend with tenacity. It's break with pace and battle, and it's working. So. Yeah, I'm not changing it. Thanks for the questions. Massive part of the show. We really enjoy it, testing us and putting us on our back foot and on our toes for that. Moving on to the final part of the show. On Sunday at 11:45, there's a game on ITV involving West Bromwich Albion and Wolverhampton Wanderers. It has got the hair standing on the back of my neck just talking about it. It's been a long time. The last time Wolves obviously won there, I think, was 1996. I was commentating for a blind friend of mine. Wolves won 4-2 with a Ewan Roberts hat-trick. Since then, we've got married. We've all got married and had children and all kinds of things. It has been a long time. But, Nocky, I know you're probably the fiercest of the trio on the podcast. What does this game mean to you?
It's just horrible, isn't it?
You deserve that question.
It's a horrible fixture. I mean, I was there like you when we beat them all them years ago. I certainly didn't think it'd be 27 years later, and we haven't won at that ground. It's just, I really want to win this one. I mean, I'm going with my dad, which is a massive liability anyway. He's eating raw meat and razor blades at the minute in preparation for the game. So there's. I know a lot of the Wolves fans who've maybe a little younger generation will probably see Villa as more of a rival. For me, it's still absolutely West Brom. They're the team I want to beat, and I've got mates who are West Brom fans, and there's nothing would give me greater pleasure than absolutely turning up there and just pulling their pants down on their own ground, because we owe them one. We've had some horrendous days there. I remember the season where they beat us, was it 5 times? Knocked us out the playoffs, knocked us out the cup.
We beat them once in the league. Jay Brothwell scored on a 1-0 win. They beat us away, and they beat us twice in the playoffs. Yeah,
and they're every time we played them, other than the games in lockdown, they were the better team. They had a better squad of players. This is the first time, arguably, with supporters in the last kind of. You're probably going back to when Stephen Fletcher scored and we beat them 3-1 at Molineux. That was the last time we had the better team than them. So man for man, we should butcher them. It should be a no contest, but it's a local derby. It's going to be a ferocious atmosphere. It's going to be hideous in that ground, and it's just. I'd love to think the Wolves could just put them to bed early and enjoy the rest of the game, but it's probably not going to unfold that way. It's just going to be an awful game. But it's one that if we can't beat them now, you may as well give it up, because we're never going to have a better opportunity to beat them. And honestly, I'll get banned from Twitter if we win that game, because I'll go absolutely deep into it if we win this. So it'll be fantastic to win this game and really just put a few demons to bed.
Tyler Nocky's obviously sitting on the fence. He doesn't seem like he's really bothered about it. But this is such, obviously, my family and generations are from Wolverhampton. I don't live there now. My family don't live there now. But this game means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to you as well. But for those guys that work in that area as well, when they're crossing over Wolves and West Brom, this is a huge game for our fan base. And I just think it's got such a massive build-up to it. I genuinely believe that this is, I don't know what the score will be, although I'm going to give you a nice prediction at the end. I feel really good about this game. Are you sharing that positivity, or are you not? Or oh no,
On what basis are we being positive? You've just said we haven't been there for nearly 30 years, and
we haven't played them there for a lot with fans for a long time. So,
but I still have horrors about the Molineux 3-2.
oh,
That's the worst one for me because, like Knocker said, they were better than us in those championship years.
Mm.
But how they beat us 3-2 at Molineux, I still have nightmares now. And I don't know. I'd like to be as positive as you, Pat, but I think I've just been burned too many times by it. Knocker's right, player for player. It's not really a contest, isn't it? And if Neto and Kuna and Bellegarde, and if they turn up, you'd like to think we could win the game, but I just can't be confident. Maybe that's the pessimist in me, but it's probably just too much years of being done by them, and are we ever going to beat them? But I don't know. I've got a sneaky feeling it might go to replay. I've just got a sneaky feeling it'll be a draw and we beat them at Molineux, but that's how I see it. But
what a horrible thing to say. Nocky, I've like the said I am, and to my wife discussed, I watch a lot of football, and I watched the West Brom game the weekend just to have a little look against Norwich, just to see what we were coming up against. And West Brom play with quite a high line, and they started quite well against Norwich, and then as soon as Norwich scored, they sort of faded, and then Norwich were the better side. But are West Brom going to tuck in against Wolves? I just don't see it. They don't play that way. I think we're going to have a really open game of football.
I think they'll sit deeper. I think they'll sit a lot deeper because they know what we're going to do.
So they're going to change a whole. They're going to change a whole philosophy for the whole season and not commerce.
It's not about changing philosophy. It's just about being a little bit more sensible defensively. And I just think they'll drop back 5-10 yards because they're not going to allow spacing behind. Because if we have spacing behind, it's probably going to be Neto, Cunha and Bellegarde. That's what I would do because I think it's pace that potentially wins the game. I think they'll know that. I think they'll prep for that and they're going to sit deep and they're going to try and hit us on the break. They've got a bit of pace in Thomas Asante. What they haven't got at the back is pace. They are stiff and rigid at the back, and there's loads of space. There's loads of opportunities for us in there, and I think they'll know that. So I think they'll sit deeper. I think they'll drop their centre halves 5-10 yards. I think they'll drop the midfielders back. And I think they'll be looking for Asante over the top and just trying to work something on the break. I mean, they've got Jed Wallace, he's got a decent range of pass on him, but I'm pretty sure Tyler beat him in a race. And they've got a lot of players who will do a job for you, but they're not quality players. But what they will do, they'll be efficient. They'll keep a shape. And they did push up against Norwich, and they're above them in the table, aren't they? So why wouldn't they go into that game expecting to win it? But it'd be absolute suicide to do that against Wolves. And they've got a good manager in Corporate, and I think he's a very intelligent guy. So I expect them to drop deeper. I expect them to tuck in. I think they're going to try and starve us a space and just try and make the game horrible to the point where Wolves really start pushing on and start leaving space in behind that they can exploit. So it's not going to be an open game for me. I think it's going to be relatively tight unless we get that early goal. If we can score in the first 15 minutes, we bring them out, then there's going to be loads of room for us to play and there's a massive opportunity. But the longer the game goes on at 0-0, and if ever we get a first goal away, that's when it's going to become a really difficult game for us because they are going to tuck in, they'll go deeper and deeper, and it's almost going to be a battle of attrition, I think.
I think the one change that I mentioned on the group chat, I've got a feeling, and I'm with what Nocky said then, I think Bellegarde needs to come in for Sarabia. Now, if West Brom do tuck in, Sarabia is the guy you want to open the door because they're going to let him have space then to deliver. But if they come at Wolves, which I think they will, I personally don't see West Brom tucking in. I think they'll come for Wolves. I want Bellegarde in the team. I want Neto in the team. I want all that pace flying and countering as quick as we can. Tyler?
Yeah, I totally agree. I'd have played him last night. As you know, I'm a big fan of Sarabia, but just get them three up front and just try and get them on the half turn and just get them sprinting. The biggest difference between the Premier League and Championship is, Knocker's just mentioned it, is pace. Pedro Neto, they won't be able to live with him. The Neto and Kuna pairing is what is giving me the hope that I probably haven't got, because if them two turn up, Knocker's right, they won't live with them pair. And I think if you add Bellegarde as well, I just don't see how they keep those three quiet all game. But they're a different team at home. I know you watch them away. They're very good at home. They're very well organised, solid, hard to beat. But those three, or at least those two, are the ones that give me real hope.
Before we move on to the predictions, just a bit of live score update. Unbelievably, Algeria have lost their last group game and will now finish bottom and go out of the African Cup of Nations, which means now Ryan Aït-Nouri should be on his way home. Tuesday today, could be available
on a private jet.
Could be available for Sunday, but he'll definitely be available for Man United unless I don't know why they will keep their squad in longer. So Algeria lost 1-0, incredibly finishing bottom of that group. I don't know how that's happened. But I mean, I don't wish Aït-Nouri's team any harm, but that result is certainly a better thing for Wolves. And if he's back, it's harsh on Doherty, but we want all our best players back. So we are now at the fun end, the business end of the show. Nockie's been dreading this all day. Nockie, Tyler, I want your prediction for West Bromwich Albion v Wolverhampton Wanderers. Nockie.
I never get these right. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in hope that I'm wrong. And I'll go for Mario Lemina for the first goal.
1-1? Wash your mouth out, young man. Tyler?
He's nicked my prediction, so I'm going to be a bit more positive. And I think we win 2-0.
Beautiful.
Kuna with the opener.
Oh, you've done it now. Good stuff. So we've got a replay at Molyneux, which would be probably on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. That'll be horrible, but it'll be equally fun. Tyler's going with 2-0 and Cunha, and I'm going to go egg on my face, central, clips galore, West Bromwich Albion 0, Wolverhampton Wanderers 3. Come on, you Wolves. This has been episode 86 of the Wolves Report. Thank you to my co-hosts and pundits, Chris Tyler and Mark Knock. Hope you enjoy the game Sunday of the Wolves.